What's up? It's Mondays with Vish. I'm Grant Cohn. That's Vish Kumaran. And we got a lot of time today. It's 3:15 on the West Coast. I don't got to be anywhere until it's time for me to get swole around 5 o'clock at the YMCA. But until then, we can talk Niners. We want to talk about shifting narratives with the head coach because it's interesting. We want to talk about the quarterbacks as well. We're also kind of light on topics today, so we might just freestyle a little bit. You guys have questions, feel free to interrupt our flow, and we'll talk about what you want to talk about. But first, we want to talk about Kyle. If you haven't seen this, Mike Florio went on a pretty Grant Cohn-esque rant yesterday, really laying into Kyle Shanahan about his blatant search for a new quarterback while Jimmy Garoppolo is still on the team. And basically, who do you think you're fooling? What do you think you're doing? I called you the next Bill Belichick, but now I have real questions. And it seems to me that the national media is sort of shifting their narrative on Kyle. Because to me, on the West Coast, I always felt like they made a ton of excuses for him from very far away. And now, entering year 5, when he may be hitting his stride, all of a sudden people are jumping off the bandwagon, being more critical. I don't know. How do you perceive what's going on here?
I don't know if people are jumping off the bandwagon yet or being more critical, just because, you know how Florio is. Like, Florio
he's
is
a little dramatic.
Yeah, he's always been a little dramatic, and he's always been kind of the guy who tries to find something out of something that maybe isn't there and then rant about it. And
he makes it about him in like a serious way. Like he's not joking at all.
Right. But I do think it is personal a little bit for Florio because Kyle called him out. I don't know if you ever heard the
name, right?
Michael Irvin podcast, but when he went on with Michael Irvin, this is about a month after the draft, he said, when he asked him when's Trey Lance going to start, he said, I don't want to say anything for Florio to make a big story about it. And so this looked like to me Florio getting his little bit of revenge. But I actually think Florio this was not the usual Florio where he picks at something that's not there to get his revenge. I actually think he did have an angle here, and that's Kyle's the one making the story out of the quarterback situation, not Florio. There was no reason for him to go that in depth about Matthew Stafford when McVay asked about it. McVay clearly asked that question, and this is where I'm a little confused by the fact that they trouble. I'm a little confused by the fact that they didn't know each other were in Cabo, because McVay, even his voice inflection when he asked that question, it sounded like McVay knew Shanahan wanted Stafford. He knew that they got Stafford instead of him, and it was kind of rub it in. Hey, Kyle, what you think about Stafford? Tell me about Stafford, because he knew that Shanahan liked Stafford. That's the vibe I got. Correct me if you got something different.
Same exact vibe. Same. He knew the answer to the question before he asked it.
Oh, absolutely, right? Absolutely. By the way, Jeremy Fowler, ESPN poll, ranked Matthew Stafford as the 6th ranked quarterback in the NFL, ranked by a poll of a bunch of executives. Felt good to see that. Just wish he was on the 49ers, so don't care about him. Trey Lance 2021, let's go. No, I'm kidding. But so that's how I took the question. And it to me, it was bait. He literally was just throwing a worm out for Kyle to catch. And Kyle not only took the worm, he ate the worm and got pulled out of the water. Poor fishing analogy. But he went on and on about how great Stafford is and everything. And I do think Florio has a point. And the point is, I actually don't think the point's about Jimmy Garoppolo. The point is about Trey Lance. Trey Lance is the future now. Kyle shouldn't be talking about any other quarterbacks anymore. Kyle shouldn't be talking about Mac Jones and how Peter Schrager was right for thinking it was Mac Jones, but he liked Trey Lance more. He shouldn't be having these conversations about any other quarterbacks anymore. I totally resent it, and here's why. They gave up their future for Trey Lance. It wasn't just that they drafted Trey Lance. It was that they traded up for Trey Lance. So I don't understand why he's creating stories, because Garoppolo is frankly irrelevant now. I'm sorry. I know I'm still a fan of Jimmy G. I know he's got a lot of people who are loyal and, in my opinion, a little bit delusional about his level of play. I know that he's got detractors, but I don't understand why he's relevant to the 49ers fan base anymore. The moment they traded up, he became yesterday's news. That I hate to say it like that. I hate to be so blunt about it, but that's the truth. That's what happened
But
to Alex Smith
hold on. Let's focus again on Kyle and him needing to go all in on a quarterback, because with Jimmy, we excused him sort of beating down Jimmy, being critical of Jimmy, throwing Jimmy under the bus because like, well, that's not his quarterback. That wasn't his quarterback. Trey Lance is his quarterback. So what are you talking about Matthew Stafford for? What are you saying?
That's my question.
Really, like he made it seem like he's still mad.
That they missed out on Stafford, right?
Today, you should be talking about Trey.
And to me, that's really what I was waiting for. I mean, I've listened to the interview with the McVay podcast twice now, personally, because I really just enjoy it. I love McVay and Peter Schrager, the chemistry they have and the vibe they got. And I think Kyle was also really great on the podcast. I think it was a great show. But I was waiting for him to say something like, yeah, look, I like Stafford a lot, but we got Trey Lance. So it doesn't matter, because that is the bottom line. He got Trey Lance. So none of this should be relevant. And that's where I think Florio, if he was looking to go at Kyle, he went at him wrong. Who cares if he's looking to actively replace Jimmy Garoppolo? He's been looking to actively replace Jimmy Garoppolo for 2 years now. That's why Grant Cohn has done about 1,000 videos on Jimmy Garoppolo in the last year and a half. Why? Does Grant want to talk about Jimmy Garoppolo 100% of the time? Probably not. It's because the 49ers always have Jimmy Garoppolo in the national news because they're always flirting with every available quarterback.
Obvious.
That's not Grant's fault.
It's not that I'm down on Jimmy. It's that Kyle is down on Jimmy and has been down on Jimmy. And what's interesting is now it seems to me that the national media is starting to be more down on Kyle. And I think it's as simple as Kyle making a lot of people look bad about Mac Jones. It seemed a little unnecessary. Okay, they got some bad information. You didn't help them. We're talking Adam Schefter and people. And then after they got it wrong, you kind of made it seem like these freaking amateurs tried to make us look bad, act like they know what they're doing. I don't know. It just seemed like a little over the top. And now where you might have had allies, you have people who are like, oh, it's like that. How are you going to make us look like we're unprofessional? Okay. All right. We'll remember that.
I think what was a little over the top was maybe saying that they made up the information and ran with it.
It's like, what?
I'm sorry.
Why would you say that about Adam Schefter?
Like, obviously, again, I'm someone looking from afar. I'm someone analyzing all of this for like a couple hours a day on my computer screen when I have free time, from a house in some suburb outside of Chicago. But I just don't understand why Adam Schefter and Mike Silver and those guys would make up information. Mike Silver was the one who broke Kyle Shanahan being hired by the 49ers. Mike Silver was the one who wrote that long essay article before the Super Bowl about Kyle Shanahan, his dad, his coaching style, his honesty. Remember the one article that included the tidbit about him cussing out McDaniel and Scangarillo for coaching Nick Mullins wrong when he didn't throw a ball to where he wanted him to go with the ball against the Rams in 2018. He had details like that in that article. And so I don't understand why he would make up Mac Jones. That's just my personal take on the situation. I have a ton of respect for everybody involved in this.
We're talking the most connected people in the industry. All of a sudden, just guessing. That's not really how those people do business. And you made them look like chumps. You went out of your way to make them be like, these guys, they suck. Don't believe a word they say. Oh, okay. Well, if you're going to make people question my integrity, well, I'm going to get you back. And I'm not saying people are taking revenge. It just seemed like this Florio thing seemed personal. Listening to him talk, I was like, man, I don't even feel this mad when I don't have anything personal against Kyle. I don't even know Kyle like that. It's kind of, I have fun doing it.
My bad.
It's
no, my bad. Go ahead.
I'm playing the part of an asshole. I like doing that with Kyle Shanahan. It's part of the game. But with Florio, this seemed like it went way deeper.
So I think that Michael Irvin thing, he took it personally.
Yeah.
Because he felt like he called him the next Belichick. He goes on shows with Chris Sims, and him and Chris Sims are boys. And
then he named him personally. Yeah, Kyle named Florio personally.
The one guy he named. But honestly, even this, I don't look at it as making a story out of nothing, like him talking about Stafford and everything. I understand that it's not the biggest deal for him to say something positive about Stafford. I think the most important thing, and what Florio was right about, is this is a time for the Niners to really tread water and not really say a lot in public, because this is kind of the crossroads of their organization. They've invested everything in one guy, and that one guy is going to determine the outcome of what happens to Kyle Shanahan in San Francisco, what happens to John Lynch in San Francisco, where Jed York looks for a next head coach. Everything is tied to the success of Trey Lance. So to me, to even talk about these type of things, having a casual conversation on a podcast with a friend of yours and a friend of the media about Matthew Stafford, while harmless, I just think it's unnecessary at this point, because everything should be about Trey Lance. Everything should be about how good Trey Lance is, how great Trey Lance is, how good Trey Lance is becoming, how smart Trey Lance is, and everything, because this organization is all about Trey Lance from now on, which is why, going back, I was touched on the Garoppolo a little bit, and to touch on the national narrative with Shanahan and the fact that, he's disrespecting Jimmy G. Well, trading up for Trey Lance and all of that was the ultimate sign of disrespect for Jimmy G, because they did it a month before the draft. They told you they wanted a quarterback a month before the draft. It wasn't, Trey Lance is available at 3, let's go get him. It was, we want to go get a quarterback, and Trey Lance is our favorite. But if he's not available, we will settle for somebody else because we want a quarterback. And so that's where I don't think it matters if he's disrespecting Jimmy G, frankly, because Jimmy G isn't the future of this organization. Jimmy G isn't that guy anymore. It's all about Trey Lance.
Okay, I want to switch this up and go to a different direction. This just popped in my head. How Jim Harbaugh would handle all this, because I covered his tenure. You lived through his tenure. He did this with Alex Smith and Colin Kaepernick, and Jim Harbaugh is not half the coordinator that Kyle Shanahan is, but Jim Harbaugh played quarterback in the NFL, and he did a good job. He resurrected Alex Smith's career, and he did a very good job with Colin Kaepernick. Colin Kaepernick, his downfall was later, and it seemed to me what Harbaugh understood was that quarterbacks' egos are fragile and need to be pampered. He understood that. I mean, he went to Chicago and was scapegoated. He was a first-round pick. They all made him seem like he sucked. He was the problem. When he understood, well, it takes some nurturing. It takes a team. It takes a coach. He didn't have that. He went other places, had success later on in his career, Indianapolis, other places. And I think what he did, or at least with the Niners, was pump up Alex Smith. He came here and said, hey, man, you've had 5 coaches tell you you're the problem. My name's Jim Harbaugh, and I say you're good. And it worked. And he really pumped up Colin Kaepernick. I think in this situation, real quick, he wouldn't be talking about Trey Lance with Jimmy on the team. He wouldn't be talking about Matthew Stafford with Jimmy on the team. He would have respect to the starting quarterback. I don't think he would do this limbo thing too. I don't think he would do this.
I agree, but yeah, I do have a question for you, because you covered both coaches, and Kyle's hallmark as a head coach, according to everybody, is honesty, right? Yes. And that's the one thing that lets him get away with maybe doing things that are maybe a little more difficult for players to handle, because he's always honest and upfront with, this is why I'm doing it, and I'm going to do it for these reasons. And so even if you don't like the reasons, you at least respect the fact that there is an open source of communication. The way, do you think there is, I mean, this is me obviously reading in between the lines, but the Harbaugh Alex Smith situation, to me, it felt a little disingenuous, because he believed in Alex Smith. But the moment Alex Smith got hurt, his belief went to somebody else.
Oh, and it was 100% disingenuous.
And it was to such a point that even though Alex Smith went 13-3 with the team in 2011, and he was 6-2-1 or 6-2, I think, he was coming off the best game of his career, 18 for 19 on Monday Night Football against the Arizona Cardinals. 2 touchdowns to Crabtree, 1 to Randy Moss. They blew him out in Arizona, and he then got hurt. He got his concussion, but he had played good enough football, and he was on the floor in the Super Bowl. Remember? He didn't even get a podium.
That's the whole thing. Like Jim Harbaugh, he wasn't trying to be honest with the press. He was the opposite of honest. What he thought was his job was to pump up Alex Smith because that's his starting quarterback. And then when he wasn't, forget Alex Smith. My job is to pump up Colin Kaepernick and make him feel like he's the best athlete in the world. That's what he did. And who cares what he really thought? He wasn't trying to keep it real. He didn't have a rep. He was trying to win. He was lying for the betterment of the franchise, because you have to. Because it doesn't matter to keep it real. Who cares that you kept it real? Sean McVay cares because of his podcast.
Honestly, because I think that exact situation is why, even when Alex Smith talks about the Niners in comparison to when he talks about the Chiefs, and he went through the situation with Mahomes, there's no lingering saltiness with the Chiefs or anything. He's very happy for Mahomes' success and everything, and he was happy to move to Washington. I do think there was a little bit of something maybe with the 49ers, but I could be grasping at straws. Yeah. Maybe.
But still, I mean, I think Jim Harbaugh handled it the right way. He inherited Alex Smith. He drafted Colin Kaepernick in the second round. He needed Alex Smith for that year. What was he supposed to do? Would be like, look, Alex, I need you to play well, but I just want you to know I don't think you're that freaking good between me and you. It's like, nah, I'm going to pump him up, and if I got to move on from him, then he'll realize that I was lying.
I don't know. Personally, if I had a coach that talked me up the way he did to the media and defended me the way he did, then tried to get Peyton Manning, but that didn't work out, and re-signed me, then I'm the leader of the team. I'm the one who started for so long. And then the moment I get hurt, he goes, even though Colin Kaepernick was special in 2012. Don't get me wrong. He was right. He was right.
And he should have consummated the deal. Yeah.
He was right to start Colin Kaepernick too. What Colin Kaepernick did in 2012 is the single best. I mean, I didn't watch Steve Young. I didn't watch Joe Montana. It's the single best stretch of quarterback play I've seen from a Niners quarterback in my life. He dominated football games single-handedly, playoff game. Really but so he was right to do both of those things. But if I was Alex Smith, I would feel like, wow, this dude is not real. He's kind of a jerk. He's like, I don't know. Like, again, I'm grasping at straws, but I don't know which way to handle the situation is better. I personally think the best way to handle this situation in both cases is just not talk. Just not talk about it publicly, not talk about other quarterbacks who are interested in publicly. Because honestly, there's no winning in that situation. That's really my point. There was nothing to lose from Kyle. Like, you can't say that him saying nice things about Matthew Stafford's a bad thing. But what exactly did he do in that situation by saying nice things about Matthew Stafford?
He made himself look good. He helped the podcast. I don't think he helped the 49ers. And that's what I tie this tie this together. What Jim Harbaugh would be doing right now, not that he's the authority on this, he would not be going on Sean McVay's podcast. He would not be talking about Matthew Stafford. He would be saying very nice things about Jimmy Garoppolo because, hate it or love it, he's still starting quarterback on this team, and they got to trade him. He'd be saying very nice things about Jimmy. He wouldn't be talking about Trey Lance very much. He'd be talking about him in generalities and because he's a rookie. But as soon as it was time to make the switch, he would talk about Trey Lance like he's the greatest quarterback in the history of the world. And he would never deviate from that until it's time to get another quarterback. There's no way that being honest about your quarterback publicly helps the franchise. It just doesn't.
And to be fair, I talked about a lot about like Harbaugh being I felt disingenuous to Alex Smith and everything. Whatever I say, he got the results, right? His methodology worked. Right, he got the
opposite is keeping it real, like Kyle does. I don't think
and he took Kaepernick and he went to a Super Bowl and then he went to another NFC Championship game and they were 6-4, looking pretty good.
And again, remember, Harbaugh was the quarterback who felt like he had been unfairly scapegoated and criticized. He has a lot in common with Jimmy. I feel like if Jimmy and Harbaugh were sitting down in a bar, they would have the same gripes about their playing career. And that's where Jim was coming from. That's why he had success with quarterbacks when he had success. And it's something that Kyle could. I feel like Kyle and Jim, if you could combine their strengths and weaknesses, would be just one hell of. They would be the guy that wins the big game instead of loses it. But they have that in common too. Jeremy says, off topic. Do you think Kyle hates the fact that Jimmy has better leadership qualities? Jeremy's a big Jimmy Garoppolo fan.
I can't define either of their leadership qualities because I haven't been around either of them as leaders. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, that's a tough one to say. I know the team followed Jimmy because he came from New England and they won a lot, but it's hard to follow Jimmy when he's, on the bench in the box, taking notes, writing down about the safeties, robot mindset. All right. Rick Holly says, Trey is a better man than to allow for an ego. He is humble and respectful of those that he comes into contact with.
Oh,
great. I hope so.
Yeah. we're not
That's
saying
not what I
that
meant.
this is not
All
going to affect.
professional athletes have an ego to an extent. I mean, Jimmy Ward has an. Jimmy Ward's the most down to earth athlete I've ever talked to, and I wouldn't say that he might be more down to earth than me. He still said in that interview, "That's why I make $9 million. The money good." And he should talk that way. I mean, you want your athletes to have a very high opinion of themselves. They're the best of the best. So I didn't mean it in a negative way. I was saying, like, it's actually a good thing that coaches want to. It's not like Bill Walsh was like in his office, like, man, this Jerry Rice, who the hell does he think he is? I gotta take him down a peg. Like, nah. I want Jerry Rice to feel like he is the best wide receiver of all time because he is the best. I need him to be the best wide receiver of all time. Be that, Jerry. Talk about it. Think about it. Yeah.
And I don't think either of us were saying, this is going to affect Trey Lance's ego or anything anyway. Again, that the comments about Stafford or anything is not going to affect anybody. There was just nothing to gain from saying anything about Stafford because at this point, again, this franchise is all about Trey Lance. I think that needs to be talked about a little bit more. This franchise is not about Jimmy Garoppolo. It's not about anymore. George Kittle. It's not about Fred Warner. It's not about Trent Williams. When you trade 2 first-round picks, swap a third one, and give up a third-round pick to go get a franchise quarterback, which is what they did to go get Trey Lance, the franchise is about Trey Lance.
And you also said there's nothing to be gained. Jim Harbaugh thought of football as World War II, and it was over the top, and it was kind of like eye-rolling. Yeah. But it's like, dude, I everything I say is strategic. And if I'm going to go on some podcast and say something, I'm not just going to blurt out stuff if it hurts the franchise, because that's what I'm thinking. So I'm going to be honest up until a point where Kyle's thinking like, this isn't bad for me. It makes me look, it's good for me. Makes me look good. Makes Sean look good. It's just, and I just don't think he cares or thinks about what the kind of things Jim Harbaugh would think about, who is super paranoid about these kind of things.
I have a question for you.
Yes.
In terms of covering coaches, I'm assuming Kyle is the easier coach for you to cover because he does give respect to every single question for the most part, and he does answer every question the best he can. Sometimes he can go on and on about things a little irrelevant.
Early on, Kyle was easier because Kyle didn't know me, and Kyle answers at length. But I've known Kyle for 4 years, and he doesn't particularly like me or my questions. So there's always just like blowback. He doesn't give me good answers. He almost like purposely gives me bad answers. Whereas Jim Harbaugh would give everyone bad answers. And then when he'd get to know you, if he liked you, he'd give you good answers. And Harbaugh liked me. He loved my dad. So by year 4, I had a great time covering Harbaugh. Like, it was easy. And I almost was like happy because I got the best answers from him. I get the worst answers from Kyle. And it's almost like comical at this point. So I personally preferred covering Harbaugh for that reason.
Okay.
Other people would prefer covering Kyle.
Okay, that's fair. That's interesting. Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah. And then I had one more question just in general. I think this is actually a little bit of an organizational issue with this regime in terms of it's not talking too much or anything. It's just at times I feel like saying things that are just unnecessary. They don't hurt anybody in any way, but they don't benefit anything. For example, John Lynch, last year's draft, still think there was no reason to say that you thought Brandon Ayuk and CeeDee Lamb were far and away the 2 best receivers in the class. No reason. Brandon Ayuk hadn't played an NFL down. You hadn't even seen Brandon Ayuk in an NFL practice.
You haven't seen Justin Jefferson yet.
Right? I didn't.
Now you put yourself in a bad position. Yeah.
I didn't see any reason to say something like that. Or them saying, Colton McKivitz was an option for us at left tackle if the Trent thing didn't go through. Why say something like that? See, these are the little things that I think that they do a good job. And I think that John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan and this regime and Jed York has done as good a job for the Niners public perception as any regime maybe ever. Harbaugh obviously did it with winning, but they've done a good job in terms of ingratiating themselves with the media. They had Peter King in for a draft. John Lynch goes on a ton of different podcasts and stuff after the draft, and
he's a media guy
with his time and information. Right? They do an awesome job with it, but I just think there's at times that there's things they say that just you can leave it and it doesn't need to be said. And I think that does go a little bit with Jed York too. For example, like the report before the Super Bowl is even played that both of them are going to get extensions and all of that. Or just in general, Jed York's random Twitter outbursts the last few weeks and months. And it's not again, Jed York can be whoever he wants. He can do whatever he wants. I'm not here to say it's right or wrong or that you're supposed to like not do this or you're supposed to do this. My issue with it is that I think that it just creates easy targets in terms of when you reflect on a situation, and that's what the media is there to do. They're not here to tell you right or wrong because their job, they're not getting paid to say right or wrong. Kyle's job is to make the right or wrong decisions. The media's job is to look at Kyle's decisions, reflect on the context, and then give what he should have done right or why he was right. And so I think you just add a little bit of ammo and unnecessary, detail to random things. Like I still think Jed York's Twitter thing before the draft was bizarre. Again, he doesn't. It's not like it's not bizarre because the other owners wouldn't do it. Like who cares what the other owners do? Jed York can do whatever he wants. It was just bizarre because essentially he's the CEO of the franchise. Then 49ers are valued at what $100 million. So he's of a 9-figure company, right? Or 8-figure company.
No, the Niners are valued over $1 billion.
He's okay over $1 billion. Yeah. He's the voice of a 9-figure company. Just seemed odd to me personally.
Yeah. David Sir has an interesting point. Just curious to know why Kyle is picking this specific offseason to go this verbal. Yeah, that's the thing. And it's like I think there's a bunch of things. I think to me the fact that he's potentially burned a lot of bridges in the national media could mean that he's trying to control his own narrative. He realizes that a bunch of people tried to paint him into this Mac Jones thing, almost made him look bad, and now he made them look bad, and now they're going to make him look bad, and he needs to go out there and talk and make himself look good. Maybe he's finally doing that.
But my problem with that is that in trying to control the narrative, and he's so picky on what he says in particular spots, he's allowing people like me and Grant and you did the show with Jason to start connecting dots and realize, wait, this presser and what you said in this presser, things aren't adding up. And there's a lot of people who have taken what he said in a literal sense, but they pick and choose to take what he says in a literal sense, depending on what he says. For example, I've seen things on Twitter where he says Jimmy Garoppolo's our guy, then they don't end up trading for 5 different quarterbacks. And he told us already Jimmy Garoppolo was our guy in March, blah, blah, blah. Then now he says, I was really interested in Matthew Stafford. I really wanted him, going back and studying him and all of that. But, he was just saying that to boost up Stafford for Sean McVay and all of that. And he's playing 3D chess with his opponents by boosting up
What the hell
Stafford's
is 3D
ego.
chess? Never seen more illusions, something I've never understood. But anyway, doesn't matter.
So I've always thought it was like the chess in Harry Potter, with the actual pieces. But then chess is technically in 3D.
It really is already in 3D.
So
that's the problem I'm having with chess. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah.
So, why is he being this verbal? Maybe he just, I don't know. You know what thing I noticed? I went on the night. I'm starting to learn about Instagram because I get thumbnails for my YouTube videos, and I've worn out Google search, this USA Today thing, and I've found Instagram. And there's a whole new world of pictures out there. I went to the Niners Instagram page. You cannot find a picture of Kyle Shanahan on that sucker. You got pictures of Jimmy, pictures of Lance, pictures of everyone. I can't find Kyle. I think it's kind of interesting, man. I just wonder if Jed's a little like, hey, man, I'm a little sick of your excuses. I need you to win this year. I like you, but maybe I'm reading into things, but I didn't see him at all. And because for so long he was basically the de facto face of the franchise. Now it's like, man, we just call us when you got a winning record.
I do have a question then for you.
Yes.
Is there any other coach on the other team's Instagram pages? I'm assuming McVay and Kingsbury are both on their Instagram pages.
I would think so. I don't know. I don't have anything to compare it to. I just assumed, I was like, okay, I need to get a picture of Kyle. Let's go to the Niners Instagram page. I bet I'll find one. And I'm like, page down. Like, dude, going back into the season, I can't find any. So I don't know. Maybe that's an oversight. I'm sure it's someone low down, but if they wanted pictures of Kyle on their Instagram, there would be pictures of Kyle on their Instagram. Anyway, Daniel says, I don't know.
I personally don't think there's much.
I don't know. Here's along the same lines, though. With how Trey wasn't mentioned in the state of the franchise, do you feel that the front office is trying to pump up Jimmy's status for trade value? Is Kyle being defiant by doing the opposite?
Ooh, I would actually love to touch on this because we never actually talked about the state of the franchise. I think we talked about it a little bit on the phone after it happened. I thought this was messed up. I
Yeah.
really thought this was messed up. The state of the franchise is actually now the state of Trey Lance.
Yes.
He's the franchise.
Yes.
Not mentioning him in the state of the franchise, in my opinion, was messed up. Again,
now real quick, we compared Kyle to Harbaugh in this situation. The other one, he didn't do a lot of talking about Kaepernick before it was time. Kaepernick was a second round pick.
36th overall pick.
Exactly. Kaepernick was a second round pick. There is no comparison. We got to stop acting like Trey Lance wasn't the third pick and they didn't trade 3 years worth of first round picks to get him. We got to stop acting like that.
Right.
He is everything.
He is the franchise, right?
Yes.
And we have to stop. That's why we have to stop having these dumb debates about, Jimmy and Trey is a competition. No, it's not a competition. When Trey's ready, Trey's going to start. Sorry, that's the truth. That's what happens when you give up this many assets for a particular person in any profession.
The Niners have a bigger commitment to Trey Lance than the Jaguars have to Trevor Lawrence. You understand? Like, if you calculate the draft capital the Niners gave up, if you add up all the draft points that the 3 first-round picks plus the third added up to is probably more than whatever that number 1 pick was for Trevor Lawrence. It's unreal how committed the Niners are to this guy. And more than the Chiefs were to Patrick Mahomes.
He's the flashy new toy to show off. He's the flashy new toy to show off.
The Niners just spent like $500,000 on a car, and they're like, yeah, we're not going to drive it until 2023. I call BS.
They're right now, and I never understood this because I'm not really into the shoe game type thing. Like, I'll spend a decent amount of money on shoes, but it's more practical rather than for the visual aesthetics of having the shoe in my closet. Right now, they have Trey Lance. They just drafted Trey Lance. But when they're going out, they're wearing their Nike Frees and going out.
You would never spend 3 firsts and the third on some shoes, though, man.
No.
That's the equivalent of spending like $3,000 on shoes.
You didn't get my analogy. He's the expensive pair of Jordans that you just bought, but you're hiding them in your closet and you're wearing your Nike Frees and going out. He's what you should be showing off. That's what I didn't understand. This is the state of the franchise, and I understand not wanting to jump on Jimmy Garoppolo's toes or Trey Lance, but if you're Jimmy Garoppolo, you have to understand the reality of whether he's a starting quarterback or not. He's the guy everybody's going to want to know about. He's the guy the team is going to want to market. Sorry, that's just the way it is.
Yeah, as the singer in that Tupac song went, that's just the way it is. Things will never be the same. That's what I learned from Tupac, and that was a long time ago. All right, Double B Studio, haven't seen whatever B Money. B Money's gone. Haven't seen B Money in a long time. Double B Studio says, Jimmy Ward praised the medical staff. Do you think this year they are addressing the soft tissue stuff, or was Jimmy helping a cover up? Maybe Jimmy knows they're addressing, and that's why he said that. I don't feel like Jimmy was working on that level. I felt like Jimmy was telling the truth, and if he had an issue with anything, he was going to say it. I don't know. It seems to me like the resources are there, and Jimmy takes advantage of them. Maybe the younger guys don't quite understand the value of these things, or maybe it's not being impressed upon the younger guys well enough, or maybe there's something inherently dangerous about these practices. Because God love Jimmy Garoppolo, he's gotten injured in practice on this team, didn't he? Yeah, it was his collarbone in OTAs. I mean,
wait, what? Really?
Yeah, in 2019, he missed all the training camp. Tavarius Moore was the free safety every freaking day.
Oh, you mean Jimmy Ward?
Sorry, Jimmy Ward. Did I say Garoppolo? Yeah. Jimmy Ward. Jimmy Ward got hurt in these practices.
Yeah.
People get hurt.
He went to ground though, right?
He did. That was what they said.
He dove for an interception.
That's true. Right?
True.
And they said he shouldn't have done that. That's true. That's on him. Yep.
Okay. I mean, I don't know. To me, Jimmy Ward didn't seem like he had any intentions of doing anything for anybody than just coming on here with Grant and having probably Grant the best interview of a Niners player I've ever seen. You and Jimmy Ward had a casual cup of conversation over coffee. You were just chilling. Jimmy Ward was direct and honest. I mean, he was honest enough to even call you an a-hole right to your face in the nicest possible way. So he was.
You never hear a football player talk at that candidly at that length ever. You never hear it, right? No. It's the kind of interview you'd hear from like a UFC fighter or a boxer.
Right. Yeah.
It was fantastic. God love
Right.
Jimmy Ward. Thank you. I hope, and honestly,
you were fantastic too.
Well, thank you. But I hope other football players look at Jimmy Ward and say, "Oh, I could do that." And I'd like to ask him, but I think it's implied that he realized he has the license to do that watching Richard Sherman up close. You know, you're supposed to do stuff like that.
I actually, you know what though? I think that's one of the hidden things about Richard Sherman. And it's not just Richard Sherman, what he did, because I'm sorry, the 49ers have never done anything to market Jimmy Ward because he was a first-round pick of another regime, Jaquiski Tartt because he was a second-round pick of another regime, K'Wan Williams because he was an undrafted free agent guy who Jeff Hafley really liked and brought in. All these guys in their secondary, they've done nothing to market these guys. Richard Sherman was the guy who used to come presser after presser. No, you don't understand. Jaquiski Tartt is an elite strong safety.
That's true.
Jimmy Ward is a terrific free safety.
That's true.
Richard Sherman goes to PFF week 1 to week 5. You can fact check this. Or whenever Richard Sherman went to PFF, watch what happens to the PFF grades of Jimmy Ward. Jimmy Ward's PFF grades were terrible to start the season. And they weren't reflective of his play. They were just reflective of PFF's horrible grading system of players. Richard Sherman goes there. Jimmy Ward's magically getting 90 grades, the highest rated player on the 49ers, all of that. Why do you think that is?
Right.
Richard Sherman has done more for these players, I feel like, than the entire Niners organization. And I do agree with that. Richard Sherman, honestly, to me, is a pioneer for the entire NFL. He just doesn't get credit for it because he's so different from other NFL athletes. He's a pioneer in terms of what he's done in terms of business ventures, in terms of podcasting, in terms of
the way he's promoting himself,
other players, all of that.
Yeah.
Unreal, unbelievable.
That's true. Yeah, not just himself, but other players too. That's a good point. Keneal says, ego is a powerful thing. 49ers brass is saying, this is exactly how we planned. We're 5 steps ahead of everyone. How dare you question us? Yeah, and I think it's pretty clear that everyone that's an insider is saying, no, that's not the real story. And by insisting that it was, you're making us look bad. And I don't know. It just does. Yeah.
I mean, this story was existing, right? This was kind of the approach they took after the draft. Like everybody else thought we were going one way, but we've been planning to go the other way the whole time. But the reality,
to me, again, that was very much John Lynch's narrative, and Kyle blows it up when he says, oh, I definitely wanted Matt Stafford.
Right. He just blew it up because it looks like the 49ers went through the quarterback offseason the exact same way. Every single person who was trying to analyze this situation went through it. When a guy becomes available, he might look good for the 49ers. It's not really working out. We can't really get him right. Move on. And they exhausted every avenue. And you know what? They finally landed at what they believe is the right answer. What I know you think that's the best option, what they did in terms of finally trading up and getting Trey Lance. I think financially the rookie quarterback was the best move, even though I still love Matthew Stafford's contract. And while Trey Lance wasn't my favorite quarterback before the draft, I'm all aboard the bandwagon now. So we'll see what happens. But this, to me, sums it up exactly. The narrative that was originally kind of going, they basically killed that this week.
Yeah. And I mean, just Kyle Shanahan, the way I look at it is like he went on the McVay podcast unnecessarily and contradicted John Lynch and the organization's narrative. And that is what he did when he sort of crashed the pre-draft press conference. That's the only verb I can think. He crashed it. That was John Lynch's press conference. He's trying to set a narrative about why the team moved up and what they're looking for. And here comes Kyle Shanahan, uninvited, being like, I want a starting quarterback. I need a starting quarterback. Better get a starting quarterback. It's like, damn, man, like, can you just at least be on the same page as John Lynch for a minute? And he's like, no, not.
And it's unintentional too, right?
Yeah.
I don't think he realizes it. And I'm sure if Kyle Shanahan, I'm sure if he sees like what you and I are saying or what other people like Florio are saying, he's saying, oh, these people are grasping at straws and creating narratives out of nothing. Well, the problem is you have to maintain consistency when you're in a high-profile position and a leader of an entire organization, because otherwise people like you who are paid and Florio who are paid to ask these questions are going to ask these questions because the facts say you should ask these questions. Like them always being bewildered that people are always speculating about every quarterback when they've been consistently saying on Jimmy, they'll do that sometimes in pressures. Like, oh, I don't know why people keep speculating about Jimmy. The other players will do it. Well, you create a lane for people to speculate about Jimmy. Like I was telling you this on the phone. I truly believe with all my heart if the 49ers hadn't flirted with every available quarterback and they just gone through with Jimmy Garoppolo, you would not be talking about Jimmy Garoppolo 1,200 times in the last year. You would talk about him. You would give your opinions on him. You would maybe project him and all of that. But at some point, you would be like, what else is there to talk about? You're not going to be talking about Jimmy versus Sam Darnold, Jimmy versus Teddy B, Jimmy versus Andy Dalton, Jimmy versus Trey Lance, Jimmy versus Mac Jones, Jimmy versus Justin Fields. How many different Jimmy versus have we had to do? And it's not because we want to do them. It's because the 49ers make the situation where if you want to talk about something interesting, and you want to create and you want to have some sort of conversation, that's what's relevant, because the 49ers are interested in Sam Darnold. They're interested in Teddy B. They're interested in Stafford. They're interested in Brady. They're interested in Mike Silver says, oh, Nick Mullins, they could have a short leash on Jimmy Garoppolo. They have all these things that they keep putting out where the conversations about Jimmy Garoppolo is not the fault of anybody who talks about Jimmy Garoppolo. It's the fault of the 49ers.
Yeah, they're interested in any quarterback with a pulse. Biz Bang Bang Niner Gang says, we need to get Shanahan on your show, fans. Let's push Shanahan into it. Grant, hey, if you can get him to do it, good on you, man. Appreciate it. Let's go for it. We got another one. Hold on. We need that Juszczyk interview. I don't think he likes me either. We'll see. Maybe Juszczyk. I think we'll see. I'm not gonna do any this week, though. I'm going on vacation in a couple of days. Plus, there's no way I can top that Jimmy Ward interview. And it's not that he was just so good. He's the best interview in the history of interviews.
I was also thinking, like, I feel like the other thing that hasn't been getting enough credit is just what a great personality Jimmy Ward has. Like, you and Jimmy Ward obviously had incredible chemistry, but for him,
anyone would have incredible chemistry. You know,
I wouldn't say that.
I saw him go on with Brad Graham, who does the R49ers.
He did awesome too.
Dude, he did so good. And I was like, oh man, like I need to let Jimmy Ward say whatever he wants to say, because this guy did a great job. And Jimmy just was dying to – God, he was basically explaining the DeAndre Hopkins story, the time that him and DeAndre Hopkins got in a fight. I was like, dude, man, Brad's awesome. Gold. It was as good as anything in my interview. And I saw that like 2 hours before my thing. Thank God. So I was like, okay, Jimmy has this side of him. I know it exists. I got to get that out of him in this interview. And thank God I got there eventually. He was censoring himself. I was like, no, go for it. Don't worry about it.
Right. And I love that you had these broad outlines and you just got him started, and you would just kind of – I thought you did an amazing job. I thought he was fantastic. And I also, Brad also killed it with Jimmy. Brad kills it whenever he has athletes on there, especially when he posts the stuff on Twitter, because I'm not on Instagram. So when I see the DSF account post it and you got Brad's face, you got a little background jam going, you got the athletes talking, it is sick. It is so sick.
Absolutely. Yeah, let's give him credit. He had the first Jimmy Ward interview. Jeremy says, do you think it was unsettling that Kyle was saying on McVay's podcast that he didn't want the job at first? I don't want my coach saying that. No, again, it's just the truth. It's honest. It's, if you remember 4 years ago, it was the worst job in the hiring cycle, and the only reason he probably went there is because he did get turned down at a couple of places. And I think part of the reason he got turned down is because his team wasn't out of it. And you have to wait on that guy.
Yeah,
he's always the last guy to put together his staff. There's always a race to get the quarterback, to get the head
coach. They had a
coach.
Conversation about that exact thing, and McVay talked about how it's weird in our business that the person who's having the most success has the worst opportunity when it comes to a head coaching job, because the
last
people
in line
want
to put together.
Yeah. But I don't think it was unsettling, but this just goes back to the theme of this show. It was just another unnecessary detail. Why say it? Yeah.
Your fans don't want to hear that. Your owner doesn't want to hear that. It's understood. You kept it real, but that's an example of when keeping it real goes wrong.
I understand. I understand. I understand what he was trying to say, right? He was trying to put it within the positive outlook of, I had my reservations, and look at how Jed and Prague changed my mind. Look at how first class this organization is. He really meant it as a compliment. I just think it's a very difficult thing to twist, especially when words can be taken so out of context. I think that one was a tough sell when you actually say the words, they weren't my first choice at first. I think he would have been better off just framing it as, I had my reservations at first because, they didn't have a great roster. The things he said, 31st in offense, 31st in defense, all of those things. If he says that, I don't think it's a storyline at all. I don't know. I feel like there's just a couple words. And really, I took AP English classes, so, like, you're trained in terms of to pick out particular words from writers. I mean,
It's true.
one of the worst essays I ever wrote, Portrait of an Artist as a Young Man, James Joyce. Did not understand a word of that novel. My teacher used to we used to have to
Doesn't
read
it
like
start from
chapters.
the perspective of like an infant?
Yeah. So it
Yeah.
starts
I read
with
that
a
in college.
bunch of
Yeah.
random words. And
Yeah, a bunch of random words.
Stephen Davis is the main character, and it's kind of like an autobiography of Joyce. Stephen Davis is kind of Joyce, but he's not. But it's funny because we used to have to read chapters. So I would read the chapters, but I wouldn't annotate. What I would do is my teacher used to go over the chapters we had to read then in the morning in class, and he would then like interpret the book for us. And that's when I used to annotate. I'd have my book out, first period English, and I would just be writing everything he says, give him my book for my annotations. He'd give my annotations back. He would be like, 10 out of 10, great in-depth, great insight. And I'd be like, oh, that was your insight. That was your. But the point is, like, that was an essay. Like, you pick out particular choices, because words are choices for authors, right? They're choices. And
That's
you pick
exactly
out
how you talk
particular
about it,
words.
English major. Yep.
You pick out particular words and you understand why you chose to say those words. That's what's happening here.
Yeah.
You're trying to understand why he chose to say that exact statement.
What was the effect that this choice had on the reader? Why did the author choose to use this word? And why was it an effective choice? In this sense, it was not an effective choice, Kyle. No, the way at UCLA, when they taught you, when you're an English major, you have these intro to writing classes. And basically when you're doing literary criticism is you start off by circling 3 words in a paragraph and focusing your criticism on those 3 choices. Why was this word charged? Why was it important? What effect did it have? You know, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, it's exactly. Good call, Vish. Was this high school for you? I didn't take AP.
This is high school.
I didn't take AP English. Which is one of the reasons I got B's in English.
Those 3 essays in the AP exam, 50 minutes each. Oh my God, my hands used to die writing those. I used to write so fast. But here's the interesting thing.
I took AP French instead and got a 2 on that. Ha!
Here's the interesting thing though, right? Because like I think this is kind of the important distinction is for people who are covering the game compared to people who are actually involved in the game. The important thing is obviously Kyle doesn't put the thought into his words that F. Scott Fitzgerald put into his words for The Great Gatsby, right? For F. Scott Fitzgerald, every word, right? Every word has to be perfect. There's a reason why every word is used. Kyle's just talking off the cuff. The problem is the people that are covering the sport are often people like you who are trained to listen to every word and ask questions about every single word because you're analyzing authors. And that's why, that's why these stories get created, because that's the important distinction, that you're analyzing from the thought process that every single thing that this person says is well thought out and has a reasoning on why he's saying it. He's just talking.
Yeah, but what he needs to learn now is that as the head coach of the 49ers, he's responsible for the choice of his words. And he's the master of the unspoken word, which is something my grandma used to say, which means you don't got to say everything that crosses through your brain. You really don't have to. And what was funny is to me is, again, I cut my teeth covering Harbaugh. You understand how hard it was to get anything out of him? Anything. I mean, much better reporters than me just failed. And every question was, what do you mean by that? Where are you going with that? What are you talking about? Kyle just gives it up. He's like, oh, what you want me to say? I like Matthew Stafford. I like Matthew Stafford. No problem. It's like, man, just make it easy.
And I think that's where, like, Belichick, as much as, a lot of media people feel like he's taken the game a step back because he's created this kind of CIA mentality. I think he benefits himself because he never is in the conversation for anything besides football. Because I'm sure he's a.
And
very
again, if Kyle aspires to being the next Belichick, well, you're a lot different than him in this sense.
But even there's other ways to do it, right? Like there's Mike Tomlin. Mike Tomlin says a lot. He's always gracious with his time to the media and everything, but he never makes a mistake on what he says or changes anything that would create any sort of conversation. And that's the important thing. You have to. I feel like the mastery of this, and I feel like this is the one thing. Actually, I wouldn't say. I would say this is the one thing Robert Saleh has mastered. It's sounding like you're giving the people who are covering the game a lot of information without giving them a lot of information. I think that's the key to working.
Fred Warner does that
That's
too.
how I understood it. That's how I understand it. Right. And I think
you're
that
polite, you're agreeable, you're not contentious, you try, but you don't say anything that hurts the franchise.
Or anything that would create any sort of controversy. And I think that's the important thing. Like sometimes I feel like Kyle, when he makes that Florio comment, he thinks that all his words are tame, but really going that in depth into describing Matthew Stafford, again, doesn't affect you in any negative way. There's just nothing positive from it either.
Also, let's say one more thing before we move on. Jimmy Ward can do that. Jimmy Ward on my interview was going like, what's the deal with Matthew Stafford? Really? Did they need to move on from Jimmy Garoppolo? I mean, from Jared Goff? I mean, was that the right move? Because Jared Goff, you know what? Jimmy Ward can do that. Kyle can't. Because Jimmy Ward, like the national media isn't hanging on every word Jimmy Ward says. Well, he doesn't represent the entire organization. Kyle
right. That's the difference.
That's the difference. T-Money Sacktown says, hey, Grant, hey, Vish. So when is your next show on running backs? I've got some questions and concerns.
It could be next week. It could be now, whenever you want. Yeah.
Yeah, let's do next week because we got more topics.
What does he want to talk about with running backs?
I don't know. He should have told us. But next week we'll do some running backs. You can chime in. Barry Z-Dep says Shanahan will have more surly media sessions once preseason starts. He's going to be constantly asked about Trey Lance, whether JG is starting or not, and that will irritate him. Well, he created the situation.
I don't think that should irritate him anyway. He should be excited to talk about Trey Lance.
Yeah.
He should be. Yeah.
Yeah. You should want to talk about Trey Lance.
Yeah.
And again, Kyle keeps it real, and Kyle's not wedded to Jimmy. So if Trey's playing well, he'll say so. He already has been. Double B Studio says, Grant, you have to try to get Frank Gore. Oh, man. Frank Gore doesn't like me. That'd be interesting. One time I did a face-to-face interview with Frank Gore where he was like squaring off against me. I was about 24. That was good. I like that. Frank Gore, good guy. I like him. He's really cool. But, you know, these players change immensely when they retire. All of a sudden, they want to talk. Patrick Willis did a half-hour interview couple weeks ago.
No way.
I never. When he got inducted to the Hall of Fame, man, he talked forever. And he never really felt comfortable in front of the media. But I guess it's like when you're really good and you're a kid and you don't feel like confident, maybe verbally, you're like, man, get these guys away from me. I don't know where they're coming from. But then you're 37, maybe feel more confident, and people aren't hounding you. It's like, wait a second, let's do it for real. So maybe Frank Gore, maybe I could. We'll see. Pinor says, what tier or ranking do you and Vish have for Tart and Ward individually in their positions? Thank you both for giving us fans great interviews. Well, Tart's a little complicated because of the injury issue. Ward hasn't gotten hurt much the last couple of years. What do you think a fair ranking for Jimmy Ward is among safeties?
Look, I have my opinion that he's higher than maybe other people do. But to me, a fair ranking is that he's within the 10 best players at his position. No doubt about it. I don't understand. I think there's certain players that get credit for being perceived to do things that he does the same exact things, to be frankly honest with you. And a lot of these rankings, to me, it's like they rank the guys that are national, right? The national guys are the ones that get ranked, you know? And I thought he personally did a way better job than I ever have of breaking down. Like, I've tried to have this conversation about whether it's Minkah Fitzpatrick, whether it's Tyrann Mathieu, whether it's all these guys that he mentioned by name. I've tried to have that conversation, I feel like, for the last 8 months that I've been doing this with you on your show. And so I think it's better if people just check out your interview and listen to what he says, because to me, he did an awesome job of breaking down exactly why. And
one thing he said that was so interesting that I've never heard anyone make a point for. I mean, he's so versatile, but you talk about how he can do pretty much everything other safeties can do. But he was like, how many safeties can do what I do? I played corner. How many safeties, good safeties in the league, played a whole year at cornerback and did well? I can't think of anyone. Can't think of anyone. That's a really good point. He's like, Minkah plays, he did a little bit in college, but he can't do that in the NFL. He can't do that in the NFL. I mean, really, Jalen Ramsey. Basically, what he said is the only guy who can do what I do is Jalen Ramsey.
Yeah.
Jalen Ramsey is a better player than Jimmy Ward. Jalen Ramsey is one of the best DBs I've ever seen. But
he's one of the 5 best players in the NFL. He's one of the 5 best players in the NFL. There's no doubt about it. He would be the best.
Bigger than Jimmy, faster than Jimmy.
Yeah, he would be the best safety in the league. I feel like if he played wide receiver, frankly, he would be amongst the best wide receivers in the league. He's just a special
like Jimmy
one-of-one
sees
athlete.
Himself as like in that mold, and I respected it. So, the one thing about Jimmy Ward that stuck out to me, I didn't realize, and fans didn't realize just how confident that man is.
Yeah,
my God, gotta love that,
and
gotta love that. That's like he had like Richard Sherman confidence.
To touch on Tart, when Tart is healthy, to me, Tart is also one of the 10 best players in the position. You turn on Tart's 2017 film, I dare anybody to go see it. It didn't get the acknowledgement that it should have, because the 49ers were an awful football team in 2017. They were an awful football team. They were the 0-9ers. They were the 0-10ers. Or the 1-10ers. And then Jimmy Garoppolo, they had the 5-0, but then the talk became all about Jimmy Garoppolo. But that defense played very well down the stretch against playoff teams. And the two best players on that defense were Reuben Foster and Jaquaski, or DeForest Buckner, Reuben Foster, and Jaquaski Tart. Those were the three best players on that defense. Jaquaski Tart was one of the best safeties in the NFL. I remember people talking about drafting Derwin James, and I was just thinking, what did Tart do that you think Derwin James could do? And what did Derwin James honestly do in his rookie season that Tart didn't do in 2017? Jaquaski Tart in 2017 played special football. So to me, when he's healthy, he's right there. I mean, Grant, you've talked about it. How many players on the team can hang with George Kittle in one-on-ones and win reps against George Kittle?
Him and Jimmy. So,
and I personally have seen clips of him not just hanging with George Kittle, him hanging with Emmanuel Sanders in practice and stuff like that. So to me, he's top 10 at his position as well. I get the injuries.
How'd you see that, Fish? Never mind. Just kidding. Anyway, no, I'm with you. No, and that's fair. I mean, when healthy, we all know he's not healthy, and you can't give him that ranking, and that's why he's making like $800K this year. But he was making like $7 million a year before that. I mean, he's made some good money in the league, and there's a reason. There's a reason the Niners kept him over Eric Reid. Yeah. He is a better player than Eric Reid ever was.
If you remember, Grant, when they extended him, they gave him a big deal for a safety. When they first extended him, they gave him a big deal for a safety. He's a hell of a football player.
Yeah, I mean, we all know. So, okay, so we're 56 minutes in, and we're now going to get to our second topic of the show. All right. It's a good one, too. I was talking about this a little bit on the Cohn phone today. It's a good topic. I'd like to hear your take on it. The Niners, the root of 49ers fans' loyalty to Jimmy Garoppolo, it's deep. I mean, I think most Niner fans want him to start week 1 and are pretty freaking apprehensive about this switch to Trey Lance. And it's kind of surprising. I thought the Niner fans would have jumped on the Trey Lance bandwagon by now, given that he was the number 3 pick in the draft and he's so gifted. But it's not going that way. What do you make of this phenomenon?
So to me, well, first of all, I feel like I have a more unique perspective on this than you, because you only look at this from an analyst perspective. So you just don't understand. You look at one quarterback and he has all these gifts. You look at the other quarterback and he has specific limitations. You just don't understand it. I'm a fan.
Yes.
So I do understand why people are loyal towards Jimmy Garoppolo. First of all, Jimmy Garoppolo looks in every bit way what a quarterback is supposed to. He talks like a quarterback. He looks like a quarterback. He has a beautiful throwing motion. But to me,
he's got that,
and this is something we haven't discussed, but I finally understood, I think, why the loyalty is. He remains an enigma. The failure with Jimmy Garoppolo,
can't really say what he is, no matter what,
because he's not been on the field to fail.
Right.
And he had the 1 year of success that they went to the Super Bowl. I feel like last year, if Jimmy Garoppolo had played 16 games, even if his ankle was healthy, there would have been a lot of struggling in those 16 games, because I thought there were a lot of things that went wrong for the 49ers. And I felt bad that Nick Mullins and CJ Beathard had to be the two quarterbacks to endure them. Jimmy Garoppolo, to me, the two most easily schemed football games for the 49ers of last season, or probably 3, I would say, were the Philadelphia Eagles game. Nick Mullins had a rough outing in that one. The Miami Dolphins, or excuse me, not the first Rams game, and then the New England Patriots game. The first Rams game, the New England Patriots game, Kyle Shanahan just tore them up in terms of finding different ways to get the ball to the perimeter. And who was healthy for both of those games and transformed that offense? And we saw what he did for Nick Mullins. The one game he was healthy by almost single-handedly winning the second Rams game. That was Debo.
Yeah.
Debo was the one, and Debo makes it so easy for a quarterback and everything. And so those games, I thought Jimmy was able to benefit. I mean, you go look at the ADOT or just go back and watch. You don't even need to watch the film or anything. Just watch the throws that he made in the first Rams game. The first forward pass he made, he threw the ball 3 yards behind George Kittle on a simple stop route.
Yeah, it was terrible.
So like, again, I'm a fan, right? So I like Jimmy Garoppolo. I like the idea of Jimmy Garoppolo. I think Jimmy Garoppolo is a capable starting quarterback. At the same time, just because we haven't seen him fail over a long period of time because the 49ers have been successful and he hasn't been on the field doesn't mean that there are glaring flaws. I mean, you can go, and this is where I implore people to go back and look at the wins in 2019. If that roster isn't that good, the way he played, those look like bad losses on the quarterback. Start with week 1. He was horrible in week 1 versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He was horrible. You go to week 3 versus Pittsburgh. That was a rough game. You go to
Pettis
week
bailed
4,
him out too at the end.
Right. Week 4 versus the Browns. I mean, not really much in that game. The Carolina game that they blew out Carolina. He didn't play well. The monsoon, both the rain games, he was not good versus Washington. He was not good versus Baltimore. He had a rough game versus Atlanta. You go back and watch the first half of the second Seattle game. First Seattle game was rough. Second Seattle game was a game that, he, for the most part, played well. He was accurate on third down, all of that. Watch the first half off of play action and just look specifically at his ball placement. There was a drive where I think he hit Sanders and Kittle both off play actions. Both guys went to the ground to catch the ball. Both guys were wide open. They're running still today if he hits them in stride. And he had one bad miss to, I think it was Kittle, off of another play action. There's so much available that just he didn't hit. And that's where I think that's what it is. They just haven't seen him fail enough because he's not been on the field to experience that failure yet.
Yeah, what they're gonna say is like, I can do it right now. It's like, okay, Vish, like you're picking out certain plays and you're getting really into detail, but all I know is that from 14 to 17, this franchise was dead in the water. And even with Kyle Shanahan here, they were 1-10, and then Jimmy comes and they win. And say what you want, but Kyle hasn't proven that he can win without Jimmy. And until he does, we're hasty to get rid of him. And you know what? It's a very good argument.
Fair, but here's what I'll say. The one thing people forget about 2017 is that was the greatest 0-9 team in the history of the NFL. By all statistical metrics, they were the greatest 0-9 team in the history of the NFL.
And it was a fluke they were 0-9. They lost like 7 games in a row by like 2 points or something.
And who are the 2 starting quarterbacks that year? Rookie C.J. Beathard and Brian Hoyer. So if your argument is that Jimmy came and transformed everything, well, then you also have to take into the context that team could have won a lot of games with a lot of different quarterbacks that were not named C.J. Beathard and Brian Hoyer.
That's a good point. Double B Studio. Yeah. No, that's a good point.
That's always been my takeaway if you go back and look at 2017. Like, I'm not here to criticize Jimmy. He won 5 games in a row. He had a couple game-winning drives. He certainly made a lot of big-time throws, all of those things. But if you go back and look at how the quarterbacks were playing before him, then you understand that, the offense was working. The offense
They were
was
always
working.
this close. They just needed like competent quarterback play, and that's what he gave them. He won a game 15-13. He did. Double B Studio says the goal is a Super Bowl. The Empire is hungry. We just want the best for the team come September. Love Jimmy, but it's about what's best for the team. Okay, well, then when you see these guys in person in preseason, that's when I think some of the apprehension will go away. Unless to me, I think that's what everybody wants, but nobody knows what's best for the team. But don't pencil in that what's best for the team is that Trey Lance shouldn't start at all, because you don't know that. And don't pencil in that what's best for the team is that Jimmy Garoppolo should play X amount of time, because you don't know that. What's best for the team is what the they're doing.
That's
what I want to say. I think, like, to be fair, I think they're handling it right. I don't think they can get rid of Jimmy Garoppolo yet. I think they need to take this down to the deadline. They need to make Trey Lance prove it. They need to hold on to Jimmy Garoppolo just in case. I think they're doing everything right. We're just trying to sort of project what's going to happen.
I think they're doing it brilliantly. We had this conversation 2 weeks ago when we talked about how Jimmy Garoppolo's play is going to be irrelevant on when Trey Lance starts. It's that exact thing. If Trey Lance isn't ready, that's why you have Jimmy Garoppolo. You never committed to Trey Lance being your starter. You committed to Jimmy Garoppolo publicly as the starter. You said it would be tough to beat him out. That's fine. You can move forward. You have a guy you can win with who's a capable starting quarterback. If Trey Lance is ready, then Trey Lance wowed you. He just came in and just stole the job. Like, there was nothing Jimmy could do because you went up and got Trey Lance. He's everything you wanted, and bang, it's a win-win for the 49ers. But I would just implore people to not say, Trey Lance can't start because of X amount of throws in college. Well, those X amount of throws tell me that he needs more playing time. So sitting is not going to give him that.
Yeah, so I have another Jimmy Garoppolo topic, and although, we can be positive, but the reason that Trey Lance is on this team is because Jimmy Garoppolo has regressed. And I'm going to say it real quick. I can say it in 15 seconds why Jimmy Garoppolo in the position he's in. To me, a lot of people be like, you know what, say what you want about Jimmy, but when he's healthy, he wins. Well, that's debatable because in his last 14 starts, he's 8-6. But the most important point is that he can't protect himself on a football field. He's heavy-footed. He's the slowest quarterback I can think of. He's brittle, and he makes slow decisions. He holds the ball too long. He's an injury waiting to happen. That is the problem going on here. You could probably say it in a much more eloquent way than that.
No, that sums it up. That sums it up for me. That sums it up. And that to me is like, even if you look at 2019 to 2020, to me, 2019, like people act like, oh, Jimmy's protection on every third down drop back pass attempt wasn't great. But the one thing Jimmy had, and I thought the one thing that made Jimmy, like the one thing that makes to me Jimmy stand out, because his processing speed or his decision making or his actual, arm strength and athleticism are not things that make Jimmy a starting quarterback. What makes Jimmy a starting quarterback is that he stands in tough and he has this ability to throw well with bodies around him without setting his feet. That's the one thing that Jared Goff cannot do. And that's why Jared Goff, to me, is a bit of a problem. Even though when things are perfect, Jared Goff can throw a 50-yard, corner route on a dime to Cooper Kupp that Jimmy Garoppolo probably can't make that throw. It's because with the muddy pocket, Jimmy Garoppolo can navigate it and throw off platform. It's what Brady is the best in the history of the NFL at doing. Well, he did not do that well last year. That's the point. And you can blame it on the ankle injury. But week one, what was he doing in the pocket? He was so slow, so heavy-footed. I mean, they got a Jerick McKinnon pass interference off of it. It was probably the worst throw Jimmy Garoppolo threw in the game. He rolled outside. It took him 20 minutes to reach the sideline before he threw the ball.
Yep.
He's really heavy-footed. It looks like he's really gotten into getting his body bigger. Like, there's a discernible difference between his size in 2021 compared to his size when he first came in 2017, probably to protect himself. But to me, he's just slower, heavy-footed, and unfortunately, in that sense, he's regressed. And I don't think he's improved the parts of his game that you thought would improve. He's not improved his processing. He's not improved as a decision maker. He's not improved in terms of being able to read safety rotations off play action.
True. And there's one more thing. I think he's really lost a lot of confidence since the playoffs in 2019.
I agree with that.
Lot. I think that's what we saw in week 1, 2020. It's like, whoa, man, you are a shell of yourself.
We saw it in the Super Bowl too. Yes. We saw it in the Super Bowl too.
Fourth quarter, it was gone. There was no confidence.
He made one really confident throw. And that was the George Kittle throw, and it didn't count.
That's right.
That was the one you saw him drop back, and he's like, ooh, I got this, and he laid it on Kittle.
One of the best throws of his career. Yeah.
By far. I would say the best throw, but there were throws like they got – I mean, Emmanuel Sanders was interfered on the play, but they had cover zero with the cornerback playing outside of leverage and Emmanuel Sanders running an in-breaking route, and Garoppolo throws the ball at his feet. And Sanders was interfered, but if he throws the ball – like Sanders was so open too, in spite of the interference, where if he throws the ball in his chest, Sanders has a touchdown. Now, they converted the next play, 3rd and 14, to Kendrick Bourne, and Raheem Mostert scored a 1-yard touchdown on that drive. But to me, that epitomized the entire, he just is not sitting back there and just letting it rip with confidence and the fullest assurance.
If the Niners felt that, Jimmy Garoppolo was going to make a comeback, this was just a minor blip last year, they wouldn't have traded up this far. No. They would have just stayed at 12 and taken Mac Jones. Or they would have drafted Kellen Mond in round 3. And been like, we like Josh Rosen and Jimmy Garoppolo has a lot of promise. They didn't do that.
Or they would have actually beefed up their quarterback room and gotten one of these highly paid backups.
That's what I feel like people want you to believe. Like, no, man, they're freaked out. That's why they just mortgaged their future for Trey Lance. And you know what? They made the right call. I'd be freaked out too. We just said why.
But what aspects of his game, like if you remember, this deep ball thing goes back to something he was working hard on, or allegedly working very hard on, was his deep ball. When he first came from 2017, when they ran a lot of friendly New England concepts, and he came to 2018 and he was supposed to run the Shanahan offense, that offseason, Jimmy Garoppolo's deep ball was a topic of conversation. The best deep ball he's thrown still remains preseason game, week 2, Houston Texans, 42 yards down the sideline to Marquise Goodwin. You remember this throw?
No, don't remember it.
Still the best deep ball of his career. He laid it on a dime to Marquise Goodwin. Hell of a throw. But it's been a conversation since then. You can't really say his decision-making, processing speed has improved. And You can't say he's become better in the pocket. Well, what can you say has gotten better? I don't want to say he's regressed. That's harsh, but
he just hasn't improved.
I can't say he hasn't gotten better either.
Real quick, it's funny. I rarely remember my dreams, but I just remember that I've been having a recurring nightmare that the Niners are playing a football game and I'm not covering it.
Oh gosh,
but I was
who's covering it instead?
I don't know. That it's like I'm listening and it's the third quarter and I'm like, oh my god, where's my live blog? I haven't even watched the game. That is a recurring nightmare I've been having. I wonder if I have that when I like go on vacation. You know what I mean? It's like, oh my god, the Niners did something. It's pathetic. I just realized it. Double B Studio says, you think that getting to know players on a personal level will hurt teams on the business side? The fans would hate GMs more. Getting rid of players they like. Curious to see if NFL will fight you, Grant. Man, I don't know. It's a tough one.
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
I think fans are very quick to throw away players that they like the moment they move on. Like we talk ad nauseum about we just talked about the Jimmy Garoppolo conflict. I guarantee you the moment he leaves the 49ers, a lot of fans will immediately change their allegiance and immediately, frankly, even become anti-Jimmy. Like the 1 week that people thought the Niners were going to get Matthew Stafford, I've seen Niners fans are all over it. Now that he's a Los Angeles Ram, the things that they say about Matthew Stafford, I've heard him be called Stat Padford. I don't know what that means, but I've seen stuff like that. I've seen a lot of trash on Twitter about it. So I think that's just part of fandom. And so you might like a player more if you get to know him, but I think your allegiance is always with the team, not the player.
Well, I think what he's saying is like, what do you think the Niners thought of the Jimmy Ward interview? And do you think they felt like, shut up? I wonder. That's a good question. I have no idea what the team thought of the Jimmy Ward interview. I hope they liked it because it was good for them and it was good for Jimmy.
He didn't say anything wrong.
Good. No, he didn't.
He didn't say anything wrong. Even the
they should encourage their players
where
to do
he
stuff
could have,
like that.
where he could have said stuff where he talked about. He made it a personal thing that I wasn't good enough to play safety, and AC took my spot, and I had to learn how to play safety in the quick game. He didn't talk about the fact that they were always changing my position. They didn't let me settle in. He never said anything like that. So to me, it was 100% positive.
Jeremy Price says a lot of what ifs. What if we rush Trey in, ship out Jimmy, and we stink for another 5 years? See, this is the thing with Jimmy Garoppolo supporters. They're thinking that like Jimmy Garoppolo is King Arthur. He alone could take Excalibur out of the stone, and once he's gone, it's going to be back to bad times. I just don't think that there's anything magical about Jimmy anymore. There may have been at one time. I don't think there's anything magical about him anymore. He's not terrible. But I think the one who's going to see magical is the one who's running around, throwing the ball over the field.
See, that's the unfortunate thing, because I think that you would really have a zeroed-in idea of who Jimmy Garoppolo is if he played the full season last year. Him getting hurt once again leaves everything as a little bit of an enigma. It's like, ooh, the Matt Ryan ascension to the MVP level quarterback still happened.
That's why Niner fans were so apoplectic when Week 1 happened. And yeah, he didn't have Debo and Ayuk for that game, and Kittle got injured, but he had Kendrick Bourne open for the win in the end zone and missed the throw. He had Trent Williams open for the first down to keep the game going and missed the throw. So I don't know what you want to say.
Trent Taylor.
Trent Taylor. Trent Williams was not open.
And both that's the bottom line to me. You can tell me Horonic Grosser started at center. I agree with all of those things. He had a clean pocket to step up into on time and throw the ball to Kendrick Bourne. Was wide open on a stutter and go. He threw a duck. If he throws the ball on time to Trent Taylor, that's a first down. He threw the ball half second late. He took an extra hitch. Yeah, that's the game.
That's the game.
That's what you pay your quarterback $25 million to do. Those are the two throws.
Tony says, how much do you think the 2020 COVID offseason affected Jimmy's development? Well, there wasn't much development, so maybe that's a good point. I mean, he's almost 30 years old. He's still working on 40 starts. I mean, it's tough.
I don't know how to even answer that question, because I wish we could have seen what the development that a full off season gave him in 2017, 2018, but then he tore his ACL. Then he didn't really get the full off season because he was still recovering from his torn ACL before 2019 and then 2020. But at some point, I think if the Niners believed that those are the things that affected his development, they don't make the moves that they have made.
That's the thing. If the Niners had the type of belief and hope that Niner fans had in Jimmy Garoppolo, Trey Lance wouldn't be on this team. It would be Kellen Mond. It would be Kyle Trask. It would be Mac Jones. It would be someone else.
Andy Dalton.
Andy Dalton, Joe Flacco, Jeremy Price says, and how do we say he's not getting better when Kittle and Kyle both said he's had the best minicamp thus far?
We talked about this on the phone, right? Improvement is a loaded gun thing. Improvement is the most
supposed
loaded
to say
gun.
That he looks great. They're trying to trade him right now.
But improvement is the most loaded gun compliment ever.
Yes.
Whenever somebody tells me I improve at something, I'm sorry, I'm a little bit of a sadistic person. So when somebody tells me like, damn, you got way better, my first thought is, holy crap, was I that bad before for him to be like, damn, you got way better?
What are you really saying?
Yeah, are you saying that I sucked at whatever you're saying I got better at before? Like that's how I always look at it when somebody says improve. Like, crap, like he must like, wow, I thought I was pretty good back then, but you're telling me I improved now?
Okay, final topic of the day. Then I gotta go get swole. It's leg day. That's what the gains are.
Oh,
that's where the gains come
you're training for your 40, right?
Yeah, and I'm sure doing squats would make me slower. But
I wanted you to ask Jimmy Ward that. I wanted you to ask him to size you up and ask, do you look like a 4.5 guy? Because I think Jimmy Ward ran 4.48 at his pro day.
I ran 4.51 on a track when I was 18, but that's different than running it on grass. Football players run on grass, and it's about a tenth of a second slower. So I would have been a 4.6 guy at the combine. And that was when I was 165 pounds. Now I'm 185, and I don't think I'd probably break 4.8. But neither would Richard Sherman, so I like that. I like my odds. Okay, so Vish and I are committed to talking about the fact that there's still no updates on Fred Warner. We're not going to belabor the point. You know how we feel, but we just want to mention there's no freaking updates on Fred Warner.
I just want an update, please.
Please. Could we get an update? Mike Silver, Ian Rappaport, Mike Garofolo, someone.
Well, those guys don't know anything.
They don't know nothing. That's all we have to say. Rod says Jimmy really was uncomfortable in pocket since ACL injury. The lack of a center, right guard position never has been good, even with Mike Person line hurt chemistry.
Sure, definitely. I think that's something, but that's an excuse you can also afford to Mike McGlinchey. The lack of consistency on who's playing next to him, that should have definitely affected his play. At the same time, this isn't a quarterback like Trey Lance. To me, you can make those excuses for him because he's a quarterback on a rookie deal. He's, you need things to be right around him while he's young and everything. Garoppolo was paid like a guy that should be able to overcome these type of situations, right?
Yeah, and ACL injury, uncomfortable. I mean, I don't know. I guess he's got a story. Yeah, I guess he's got a story. I guess he's got excuses, but I'm just much more interested in the Trey Lance story at this point.
I don't know. Me too, honest. It's.
I mean, he got on one hand the 30-year-old athlete with all these excuses and pitfalls and stuff. The other guy, you got 21-year-old athlete with this glorious future ahead of him. I think it's more interesting. I know that Jimmy's at a crossroads, and that's interesting. He's got a lot at stake, but I don't want to hear about the next injury or the lack of development. I don't know. It's boring.
No, I feel that. I feel that 100%.
His story.
That's honestly, that's where I'm at. To me, I'm sorry, but Garoppolo is irrelevant now. I'm sorry. He'll be relevant for the next team that signs him as their starting quarterback. Unfortunately, that's what happens when you give up that much to get a starting quarterback. They so eloquently put it in terms of getting Kyle Shanahan. Or Trey Lance, excuse me. So honestly, unfortunately, Garoppolo is no longer the story. That's the point. I want that to be the theme of everything we've talked about today. Trey Lance is the story. Everything that should be talked about should be about Trey Lance.
And when they talk about Jimmy Garoppolo, it's marketing. They're trying to trade him. It's marketing. Okay? I don't get paid to market for the 49ers, so I'm not going to do that. You know what I'm saying? This is just marketing. They marketed Vance McDonald for a little while, and they traded him.
Yeah.
Jeremy Price says Ronnie Lott the movie. Yeah, I would watch that. That would be like Waterboy, but real.
Oh, there's a movie of Ronnie Lott?
No, there should be.
There's a movie of Kurt Warner coming out.
That looks I mean, it is a good story, but it looks like ridiculous the way they did it. I've seen it. It looks really unathletic.
You saw the Twitter page, didn't you?
Yeah. It looks
odd. It looks odd, yeah.
Elite Team Killer says, I'm a sadistic person, Vish 2021. Yeah, you did say that. Well, anyway.
Say that.
Jay Mangold says 9 different styles of Jimmy G jerseys. Who's going to pay that bill? I love how the Niners keep trying to sell his jersey and his likeness. Like, you got to love the commitment to that, you know?
Hey, the 49ers jerseys I own, well, I own a kid. Well, it's like a 2-year-old toddler Jerry Rice jersey. It was first bought for my sister because my dad's a big Niners fan, and then I wore it, and I'm saving that puppy to put it on my children. I own a Patrick Willis jersey that I probably wore like every week, twice a week in 4th grade. I have a Michael Crabtree jersey. I mean, and now I have a George Kittle jersey. So I don't have a lot of jerseys, but like, I don't mind wearing the Crabtree jersey and stuff if they still fit. Like, I don't. It's
You
a
should wear it
Niners
next
jersey
week.
all the same.
Jay
Dude.
Naylor says, does 2011 Alex Smith, that type of game managing quarterback, beat the Chiefs? If the Niners had that type of quarterback instead of Jimmy Gunslinger Garoppolo, they win that game. Hard to say.
Tough. Yeah, it's a tough one. I feel like there's specific things, like there's specific decisions that Jimmy made in that game that Alex Smith wouldn't make those decisions. But I'm not sure even Alex Smith makes the throw on the Juszczyk.
That's the thing.
Touchdown. That sidearm little flick
that
he's half covered. Like, I don't think Alex Smith makes that throw. So it's
and I'm not sure he hits Emmanuel Sanders down the middle. I could see Alex Smith overthrowing that one too.
No, absolutely. I mean, we saw him, Brett Swain, the play before the Vernon Davis one in 2011. Yeah, it was Brett Swain, right? The guy with a lot of hair that used to be on the Green Bay Packers. He had him with a step, and he overthrew it by a yard.
True. Biz Bang Bang Niner Gang says trade day. Get rid of Jimmy and pay Warner. Yeah, Fred Warner, not Kurt Warner. I gotta see that. That video. Samboni slices. Lance still needs to perfect his mechanics. If he starts off on the wrong foot, he might lose it mentally. Shout out to you, Grant. Agree. He's got a lot to prove. He's definitely hasn't even practiced some pads yet. The job ain't his yet. He'll have to go get it. I think he will, but we'll see. All right, I gotta go get swole, man. It's leg day, man. That's where you get the gains. That's where you get the gains.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna see you in 2 weeks, so I'm gonna have to see these gains in person.
Absolutely. I went to the dry cleaner the other day, and the lady said that I was looking handsome. I was so happy. I was like, "Thank you."
Really?
She said, "Oh, you're looking handsome." I was like, oh, "Behave." She's nice. She's nice.
Did you show her the ring immediately?
Yeah, she's also like as old as my mom. But she'd be nice. But I appreciate it. I was like, "Thanks. I've been working out."
Ooh.
So the dry cleaner.
Oh, you told her you've been working out.
I've been working out. Yeah. Oh, you noticed.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, I gotta go over there for more compliments. That was really nice. Thank you very much, everyone, for your attention. We got 700 people watching on a Monday in July. It's because Mondays.
I don't even know what we talked about, honestly, for the last 22 minutes. So I appreciate 700 people for watching it because we talked about a lot of random things.
We really did. Thank you, Jimmy Ward, for watching. He's a big fan of the show. He always watches us. And we said some very complimentary
by
things.
the
Top
way,
10.
I did want to say that. Thank you for mentioning me. Honestly, I have it screen recorded and saved. Jimmy Ward saying he loved me. That was that was a top 5 life moment. Like, actually, I shouldn't say it's a life moment because if my dad sees this, he'll be like, "Wow, your life moment is really having a football player say that."
Well, you haven't gotten married or had kids yet. Hell yeah. I think that's fair.
Yeah, I used to say, honestly, this was my running joke the 2 weeks before the Super Bowl. I'd be like, barring, I'm not married. I don't have children. Barring those 2 life events, if the Niners win the Super Bowl, it'll be the single greatest moment of my life. And then I realized it's actually a little more sad that I'm saying that than it was like a funny little joke. So then I let that go. And then them also losing the Super Bowl, that was tough to stomach, for about a week. And then I moved on with life. So
yeah, if they win the Super Bowl, it's really not your accomplishment. That's what I had to learn at a certain point.
That's what. So like Jimmy Ward saying he loves me, well, it was awesome because I love Jimmy Ward and everything. Like I gotta get a job right now. This is job season. This is where I gotta find a job. So that should be where my focus is. But it's not.
You should just put that little clip on your resume if you have an online resume. Put it on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Jimmy Ward is my reference.
I'm sure. Right. Hey, when I go in for the Amazon interview, if I interview for Amazon or Google or Facebook, all the big tech companies, I put in my application. You're looking for reference from one of my professors about how I am as a computer student. Forget that. Computer science student. Forget that. This is not just starting. Star. free safety Jimmy Ward saying that he loves
$9
me.
million a year. $9 million a year. I mean, I could get your professor, but he ain't making $9 million like Jimmy Ward is. Nico Suave.
Actually, you know what, Grant? Do you mind saying that you love Vish too?
I love Vish.
Oh, let me screen record that. That's Grant Cohn, 33,000 subscribers on YouTube, saying that he loves me.
That's right. About to get swole in the gym, saying I love Vish Kumaran. That's how I do. About to get swole.
Faster 40 time than a lot of football
players. A lot of players. They don't want to see me. Jimmy Garoppolo. I guarantee I could beat Jimmy Garoppolo in a 40 in a race. It's time for me to go get after it. Thank you very much, everyone, for watching. I'll be back tomorrow with Botan. My dad is out of town, but he'll be back on Wednesday. So we're shifting around the schedule a little bit, but I'll be here. So I'll see you guys then. Thank you. See you around.